Not choosing is still a choice. On this episode of the It Starts With You podcast, we are going to be diving into indecision, what it does, and realizing that what you aren't changing, you are choosing. Not choosing is still a choice. Today, what I want to talk to you, and I have some notes because there was just, as I was thinking about what I wanted to talk to you about today on the podcast, this was something that came up for me. And so I wrote a couple things down. So if you're watching the video, I'm going to look at some of my notes because there's some things that I really want to say to you. But something that I've started to notice in myself lately, as well as with my clients, is this place of indecision. And oftentimes, that is something that I am always working on. And it's mostly coming from a place of my indecision is because I am, as I've shared before, recovering perfectionist. I'm also a detail person in the sense of I want to have all of the information before I make a decision. And that's not always, you can't always do that. And sometimes it has to be good enough to make the decision and then you iterate as you go. But that is something that I have always, and especially as a business owner, something I've really had to get through is where is this balance of having enough information, but taking the action and getting the momentum. And oftentimes for my clients too, is that sometimes we aren't making the decision because we don't have time to think about it, or they don't have time to think about it. There's a couple of my clients who have so much going on, big changes within their organization. They're tasked with so much. They're working crazy hours. And so there's certain things that are frustrating them, things they're not addressing either for themselves or with other people, but they don't have the time to think about it. But here's the thing, if I keep coming back to not choosing is still a choice. So if we're sitting in indecision on something, or if we're not addressing something and we're spiraling, that's still a choice that we're making. Sometimes we're not sure if it's the right choice, or you're somebody who might overthink and you want to make sure that you always make the right choice. Maybe sometimes we're not making the choice that we know, like in our gut, we know that we should, has sort of this like guilt to it, but like we know it's a thing that we need to make. It's a decision that we really do know that we need to make, but it might mean being uncomfortable. It might mean letting go of the familiar. It might be letting go of a safe space. And oftentimes, even if we aren't happy with the situation that we're in, that uncomfortableness or that pain or that fear of the unknown keeps us from making a change. Sometimes it's that we get that paralysis analysis, like we're not making a decision because there's just too many choices. And sometimes it's because we want to put guilty right here. We want to put our head under the rug and pretend that we don't have to, especially if you're somebody who's like, I make so many decisions in a day that I just don't have the energy or capacity. But either way, it's still a choice. And what you are choosing to accept or choosing to sit with, you are choosing, right? So what you aren't changing, you are choosing. What we aren't changing, we are choosing. I'm gonna say it one more time. What you aren't changing, you are choosing. And I don't say that as a guilt or like pointing my finger at you. Again, oftentimes I'm talking to you about things that I work through as well. Really, it's coming from a place of more empowering and an awareness. Like we need to be able to hold up the mirror and go, I am choosing this. The things aren't happening to me. People aren't doing things to you, right? You can take that ownership, and that's a choice. And sometimes if we experience enough pain or frustration, then we're finally ready to make the change. And one thing I've had to really sit with myself also to say is I don't have to have the perfect execution plan on it. If I don't have all the details figured out, sometimes I can hold myself back. However, that can keep you really stuck. If you're like me, that can keep you really stuck. And oftentimes the first step is to decide, because sitting in that place of indecision is one of the worst places. You either need to choose whatever your thing might be that you're thinking of, and hopefully you have a situation in your head that like, oh yeah, I am kind of sitting stuck in that, is that's the worst pace because you are just in this limbo. Like, I don't know, here's an example that it made me think of. If you have to like get ready to go somewhere and you don't have enough time, like you have this whole long list of things to do, but you don't have enough time to really get started on any of them, but it's not time to leave yet for that thing. Are you tracking with me? Because this is what I think of, where then I'll just kind of sit there and I'll open things up to start working on, like, well, I'm not gonna get started working on that because by the time I actually really get into it, it's gonna be time to get ready to go. But it's not really time to go yet. So then we just waste all of that time. I do this all the time. Like in that amount of time that I was wasting, I could have like folded some laundry or something. But it's almost this like limbo land that we stay in because it's like, oh, I'm not time to go yet, but I don't have time to do it. That's what happens. And then we're not productive at all. And so when you can just make the decision, the first step is to just decide, right? Decide. And then that usually leads to the next step of action. And then that gives you the momentum. So you don't need to have it all figured out yet. You don't need to be at square one and be like, well, I can't make a decision yet because I don't know what's going to happen at step 15. If you just take it step by step, that can get you out of that place of indecision. And the idea is that we're always at choice. We choose how we respond. We choose how we show up to those situations. We choose the actions we take or don't take. We choose how to respond when people, if they treat us a certain way. And that actually gives you ownership to realize that you aren't at the effect of things. You are in the driver's seat. And at any point in time, you can make a different choice. This is one of the reasons that I love the energy leadership assessment so much that I use with my clients. And I've been using it since 2019. It's one of my favorite assessments for really helping us to, this framework to really help us see how we're currently showing up in situations, how we're responding when we're under stress, what's our effectiveness in these different areas, and the impact and the results that we are getting, and really helps us to hold up the mirror to, why am I stuck in this situation? Why am I not meeting my goals? Why am I feeling frustrated? And we can really get a good lens of what is your perspective and your behavior to how those things are. So if energy leadership is something that interests you, go ahead and pause this, scroll to the show notes and set up a time with me. We can connect about using this for you or your team. It's an attitudinal assessment, not a personality assessment. It's attitudinal. And so our attitude on how we are showing up to making these decisions is so important. And so what you aren't changing, you are choosing. So what is the situation that you're in right now that maybe you've been spinning your wheels on or spiraling or just complaining about, but not really doing anything to change it? And the first step is for you to make the choice to do something different, for you to say, okay, I'm ready to do something different, and acknowledging that you've been stuck, right? There might be something that you just know. So first it's making the choice. Like you have to first choose, okay, I'm ready to do something different. And then it might be, for you, there's kind of different paths you can take. Is for you, it might be changing your perspective on it. Maybe you need to look at it differently. Maybe I want you to think of this peripheral view of the situation, and you're like, I'm gonna look at it from over here, I'm gonna look at it from over here, and you're just going to try and change your perspective on it, your thoughts on it. That might be one option for you. Or it might be that you need to change an action. Like you need to not just think of it differently, but you need to actually do something different. That might be like taking a different action, trying a different approach. Maybe it's changing your schedule. Maybe it's changing the way you address this person. So when I'm working with a client who's been, coming to me and talking about some frustration with someone on their team or somebody not performing, and they've sort of just been rationalizing or tolerating it for a long time. And now they're like, okay, I need to do something different. Sometimes that's a different action. We need to set up a different meeting. We need to have a different conversation, right? Because they're no longer willing to stay in that place of limbo land. I'm going to call it limbo land. It's kind of fun. So it might be changing your perspective. It might be changing your action, or it might be accepting it as it is and choosing to actually not make a change, but being okay with it, right? We're not going, okay, it just is what it is, and then still harboring what we call in energy leadership catabolic energy, which is that stuff, that frustration that's under the surface. Like on the surface, we're like, oh, everything's fine, it's okay. But underneath, like someone says something, all of a sudden we're like so angry or we're so frustrated. Not that. When we say accepting, we truly are going, actually, I'm okay with how this situation is. I feel peace with it. I don't really need to make a change. So that's different type of energy and different approach. So first you need to make the choice that it's time to get out of that spiral, that limbo land, and make a decision. Then you have to, I always say, like, think of it like a hat. You're trying on these different things. Maybe you're changing your perspective on it. Maybe you're changing the action that you take and you're actually doing something different. Maybe you're choosing that things are actually okay how they are and you don't actually need to make a change, but you're really at peace and accepting that. So if this is you, you really first have to get quiet and be really honest about where you are at with it and really what is getting in the way of you making the change. Are you sitting in indecision because you're waiting for everything to be perfect? Are you sitting in indecision because the decision that you're trying to make, like the one that you thought you wanted, actually maybe isn't right, but you're trying to force yourself to do it. Are you sitting in indecision or feeling stuck because you're intimidated to talk to that person? Like, first you have to get quiet and really figure out for you what's going on. For one of my clients that I'm thinking of, it was a conversation that needed to be had. And they had this problem. They kept coming every single one of our sessions talking through it. And we first had to really work through their thoughts and feelings around this whole situation, around themselves, around this person. And then it really came to the point of deciding what other actions needed to be taken. And sometimes it's not a one and done. It's we try something, okay, that didn't really work. We might try something else, but at least you're in the game. At least you're taking the action and you're trying different things, because with the action, you get more clarity. When we stay stuck in it, we're just spiraling, versus with action, we get the clarity. And often a question that I'll ask my clients that when they're continually coming frustrated about something or they're not taking action is, what could you be tolerating here? And oftentimes that is an aha moment, because they realize that they are tolerating, maybe it's poor performance, or they're settling for just good enough, or they're settling for being treated a certain way, or they are tolerating this idea that this is as good as it gets, when there could, like, what if there was more? What if there was different? And so that can be really an aha. So my challenge for you is to think about, and you probably have as I've been talking about this, I can think of multiple situations that I have right now that I'm sitting in indecision, and the root of it is different. One is because it's like, wow, that just feels like so much energy to make the decision. Another one is because it feels like I want to have all of the perfect things aligned in the perfect way, in the perfect place, which is just la la land, but in my head. And then there's some other decisions that I'm like, maybe I'm dragging my feet on it because I am looking to make a change that maybe I don't want to make. So first, you really just have to get quiet. So what is something that you're dealing with right now that maybe you've been thinking about or talking about for a while, and really sit on it and really think about, what is it about that situation that's causing you to feel stuck? And think of something you've been sitting on and knowing that you want to do something about, and ask yourself, why haven't I? What is causing me to feel stuck? What's getting in the way? And what's it going to take? What's it going to take for me to take the next step? And then my challenge for you is to try taking that first step towards something. What is that first step that you could take? And if you took that first step, what would that do for you? So just remember that not choosing is still a choice. And at any point in time,